Hello everyone. How are you? I hope you are doing good and your preparation is going fine. If you are able to hear me out, then just give me a thumbs up in the chat window. So today we are going to continue with the descriptive writing sessions on finance. So today I've taken a very interesting topic, which is about capital market, right? So that is definitely going to give some value add to your preparation. So guys, I'm waiting for a thumbs up. If you guys are able to hear me, then just give me a thumbs up. So guys, I'm waiting for a thumbs up. Fine, so everything is fine, guys. So let's start with this session, right? So today, what we are going to discuss is the question that we are going to discuss is basically what are capital markets, right? Discuss the role played by SEBI in development of capital markets. So this is the question, right? This is a very straightforward question. This is not something which is very tough or which is very abstract that you have to first think that what the question is, then accordingly answer. This is a very straightforward question, right? So I'm not going into that approach that first let's make the micro question and all, because by now I hope you would have understood that first we have to make the micro questions, then we have to write whatever content we have, the content outline kind of thing. Right. So the micro questions here are very easy. So first we need to tell about capital markets. What are they? What are they used for? What is their significance? Right. So depending upon if the question is of 15 marks, I'll write in brief about capital markets. I'll not go into detail of their significance. But if the question is say of 20 marks, then obviously I will write a lot about capital markets along with what are they, what are different types of capital markets like primary and secondary markets. Then I'll also mention what are their significance in our economy, right? Then I'll mention about the role played by SEBI in development of capital markets. I hope this is clear, right? So now what are capital markets? Now you would have a lot of knowledge about capital markets, है ना? आपको बहुत कुछ पता है कि capital markets में क्या है. Capital markets में there are a lot of products, you know, bonds हैं, equity हैं, government securities हैं. You also know there are a lot of players in the capital markets, like a lot of intermediaries like stockbrokers, stock exchanges, the investor, the companies, the banks, right? But we will not be able to write too much. Try to understand, right? Even if it is a 20 marker question, I don't think you will have a word limit of more than 300 to 400, right? Or even if there is no word limit, you will not have time to write more than this 300 words, right? So we have to be short. We have to kind of be very terse in our writing, right? Because that is where they will check that how much you are able, how much you are able to express yourself, right? तो सबसे पहले तो आपको ये पता होना चाहिए कि व्हाट आर कैपिटल मार्केट्स इन लेमन टर्म्स. डू यू नो व्हाट आर कैपिटल मार्केट्स? कैपिटल मार्केट्स में क्या क्या होता है? आर टी बिल्स, T-bills or commercial paper or your certificate of deposit, are those part of capital markets? Are those part of capital markets? The answer is no. What comes under capital markets is, first is your equity, that is your stocks. Next is your government G6, government securities, and then corporate bonds. Right. So capital markets are used for raising long-term capital. Money market is used for raising short-term capital, in which we have products like commercial paper, T-bills and all those things. So capital markets is different from money markets. That is the mistake you should not do. So capital markets are the markets where long-term funds or fixed capital are raised by companies by or through the issue of shares, government checks or corporate bonds. This you should be very clear. If you start mentioning about T-bills or any other thing, then that will not make sense. Right, so this is very brief overview of capital markets. Then within capital markets, there is a division between primary and secondary markets. I think it's worth mentioning it, right? That in primary markets, securities are bought or sold initially during the initial public offerings, whether it is of shares or government securities or corporate bonds. And in secondary markets, basically they are for further trading between the individuals once the offering in primary market is complete. Right, so secondary markets basically provides liquidity. Right, they provide continuous and regular market for buying and selling of securities. Right, this much I think you should be able to write. Right, nothing special here, but at least we have tried to put it in a very terse terms. Right, then if it is of 20 marks, then I will also try to write about significance of capital markets. अब capital market की significance क्या है? Capital market वो जगह है जहां से companies पैसा उठा के अपनी growth के लिए लगा सकती हैं. Like you can give example, Reliance Industries raised a lot of money through equity and by issuing bonds, and they invested that money, which gave good returns to investors and helped in growth of Reliance. So basically capital markets create a bridge between suppliers of capital and users. Users here would be companies. ठीक है, कंपनीज को जो पैसा चाहिए वो हम लोग देते हैं. हम लोग 10-10 हजार कर कंपनी के शेयर्स में लगाते हैं. वो 10-10 हजार जब हम सब लोग लगाते हैं वो मिलकर करोड़ों रुपया हो जाता है. So capital markets create a bridge that help connect suppliers, that is us people, and the users, that is the companies. ठीक है, कैपिटल मार्केट्स क्रिएट्स अ हैबिट ऑफ सेविंग एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट. अगर मुझे पता है कि कहीं से मुझे अच्छा रिटर्न आ सकता है तो दैट विल क्रिएट अ हैबिट इन मी टू सेव मनी एंड इन्वेस्ट इन द शेयर्स और बॉन्ड्स ऑफ दैट कंपनी और बॉन्ड्स इशूड बाय द गवर्नमेंट. ठीक है, फिर कैपिटल मार्केट्स में से बहुत सारी पीएसयूज पैसा उठाती हैं फॉर डेवलपमेंट ऑफ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. राइट, जैसे कि एनएचआई के बॉन्ड्स होते हैं. एनएचआई, नेशनल हाईवे अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया, इशू बॉन्ड्स. When they issue bonds, people buy those bonds, then NHI is able to raise money, and that money is used to build roads. Right, so infrastructure development में भी capital markets का बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है. Third point is basically linked to the first point, where in the first point we said it creates a bridge between suppliers of capital and users, and when the company that is using that bridge to raise money is a PSU or a company like NHI or a power company that basically helps in infrastructure development. Then capital markets can also act as barometer for our economy. जब हमारा सेंसेक्स ऊपर नीचे जाता है, ठीक है, जब हमारा सेंसेक्स ऊपर नीचे जाता है तो that reflects the state of our economy. If sensex is down, say by 10,000 points in next 1 month, it will basically try to reflect the state of our economy, that in our economy the companies are not able to do well, they are not able to generate profit, right, they are not being efficient or whatever it is, right. Therefore the capital markets will reflect or will act as a barometer of economy. right, clear है आप लोगों को ये? और भी बहुत सारी सिग्निफिकेंस है, बट आई थिंक others are also related to these points, and this significance can be kind of elaborated if the question is of 20 marks, but otherwise you can just mention in very brief that capital markets is a place where long-term money is raised through issue of shares, SECs and corporate bonds. It is divided into primary and secondary markets, and it basically helps in creating a bridge between suppliers of capital and users, and therefore when that money is invested, it basically results in better return for the investors. So investors get in habit of promoting saving and investments. Right. So this you can write in 2 lines also, or you can write in 4 points also, but that will depend upon how many marks that question is having. right? This is clear. So this part is not something you have to write mandatorily, but it depends upon the number of marks. Please note this point down. Whenever you are writing anything, the scope, how much you need to go into depth, will basically depend upon that how much marks that question is worth, right? So once you have done this, your first the answer to your first part is done, that what are capital markets. Now you have to answer the second part, that discuss the role played by SEBI in the development of capital markets. Now here when you jump to the second part, you cannot jump directly, you have to create that link, right? Linking बहुत जरूरी है when you are writing. Each paragraph, each part of your answer should feel like that there is an organic flow, there is linking. तो यहाँ पे हम link कैसे बना सकते हैं? Maybe we can say that no, once we have told about the capital markets, that since capital markets are barometer of economy, therefore uh, it's very it is very much required that there is good development of capital markets, but but in say in 1980s, capital markets suffered through a lot of problems, which got resolved after SEBI came into the picture, or SEBI was given statutory powers in 1992. So you can establish that kind of link, right? That capital market is necessary for the development of our economy, but capital markets faced a lot of problems before SEBI was given statutory powers in 1992. And you can briefly, right? You can briefly mention about the problems. So there was lack of transparency and access of information to investors. There was a lot of insider trading and price rigging. You must have seen Harshad Mehta series. In that they have shown that a lot of insider trading was happening those days. Then poor infrastructure, right? There was no online trading. Shares were being traded in physical format. There was no dematerialization of shares, right? Then there were not much intermediaries present, like underwriters, merchant brokers, credit rating companies. So overall, the infrastructure in which though that capital markets were working was not fully developed. Then SEBI was toothless. Though SEBI was established in 1988, but SEBI was not having that powers that it could rate somebody, it could investigate somebody. So it was just an organization without any power at that time before 1992. Then lack of investor education, right? There was not much focus on investor education, as in these days even a mutual fund ad has to tell that no, there is a warning that mutual funds are subject to market risk. So that is also kind of part of investor education. So at that time there was no investor education, right? Nobody used to care about, nobody has the ownership to educate investor about how to prevent themselves from any risk or any frauds. Then inadequate risk management. You can see Harshad Mehta scam happened, right? So that was basically, there was not proper risk management, or there was no proper transparency. So you can write it here also under transparency, right? Then hostile takeovers. So a lot of companies which were listed, right, they were always worried that they would be taken over by other companies. How? So when you have listed on a stock exchange, like some person, say Mukesh Ambani, comes and buys 40% shares of your company, right? So it's like Mukesh Ambani has lot of stake in your company. So he has kind of done a hostile takeover. So you might be having just 10%, 40% is with Mukesh Ambani, and this rest 50% is with public, like people like you and me. So now when Mukesh Ambani has bought a lot of shares on the stock exchange, he kind of becomes the owner of that company, not you, right? Because you just have 10%, but he has 40%, right? So there was a lot of action with respect to hostile takeovers in those days. A famous case in 1980s happened with respect to Savraj Paul, who was a London-based businessman. He tried to gain control of Escorts Limited and Daily Cloth Mills, right? So there were a lot of incidents like that when NRIs or even Indians tried to take control over of other companies, that is buying shares in large number, right? Satyam scam, I would not say that was due to lack of developed capital markets, but yes, it was due to lack of transparency. Right? So this you can write as in the problems before SEBI was given statutory powers. Again, if the question is of 15 marks, you have to write it in very brief, right? Maybe in one paragraph itself or in very short points. You don't have to go into detail, because the main part that you are answering is this one, that what is the role played by SEBI in development of capital markets. So this is just a linking part between the first part and the second part, right? So depending upon how many marks, the question is, you would have to write this part, right? Ketan Parekh scam you can also write, but I think Ketan Parekh scam happened in 2001 when SEBI was already there. So even SEBI could not prevent that scam, and that is truth. How many ever regulatory institutions you develop, scams will not stop, right? Scams will never stop. But yes, they can be decreased, right? So somebody was saying, can we write why development of capital market is necessary? So basically this is that part. Why development of capital market is necessary? Because they are required for development of our economy, since they help in creating a bridge between suppliers of capital and users. They create a habit of doing savings and then doing investment. So all these you can write. So this is significance of capital markets, or why development of capital market is necessary, is the same, right? So this part, basically capital markets face several problems before SEBI was given statutory powers in 1992. This can act as a link between the first part and second part. And then in second part you can mention about that after SEBI was given statutory powers in 1982, SEBI took many steps, right, to resolve many of these problems. Now SEBI has taken many steps. I can tell you 20 steps, but you will not be able to write all of them. So it's better to write only those steps which are in line with the problems told by you earlier. So you told these 7 problems, right? You told these 7 problems. Now if you can tell the steps taken by SEBI to solve these 7 problems, I think that will make a genuine flow in your answer. So for lack of transparency and access of information to investors, SEBI clause 49 of the listing agreement makes it mandatory to disclose information on timely basis. Then SEBI is also doing periodical inspection of stock exchanges. You can mention that, right? Even SEBI LODR, listing obligation and disclosure requirements, SEBI LODR regulations have also been released, right, in 2014, I think. So as per that also, disclosure needs to be provided by the companies. Then insider trading and price rigging. On the recommendation of NK Singh committee, prohibition of insider trading regulations were framed, right? So if you know more about these regulations, you can tell that as per these regulations, somebody who wants to trade in the shares of their own company has to make a trading plan for 6 months, right? So if I want to do trading in August, I have to submit a trading plan now, which will tell that I will do this trade in August, right? So if I do trade as per my trading plan, which is made earlier, then obviously I cannot use any news which will come in June or July, right, to my benefit. So that again depends how much knowledge you have and how much time you have and how much marks worth that question is. That will basically decide whether you should write more or just this much. Then poor infrastructure, right? So for that, dematerialization of shares was started, online trading was started in various stock exchanges, various intermediaries were set up which got registered with SEBI, or it was made mandatory for them to register with SEBI, such as merchant bankers, underwriters, credit ratings companies, right? Then lack of investor education. So basically what is doing SEBI for investor education? There is national strategy for financial education, which is being promoted by SEBI, RBI and all other regulatory bodies, NABARD even. Then there is investor education and protection fund. So any penalties levied by SEBI goes to this investor education and protection fund, and from here the money is used for investor education, or to basically give money to people who have suffered loss due to default by brokers. Then establishment of National Institute of Securities Market, NISM, which is promoted by SEBI whose objective is to spread financial awareness about capital markets. Right. Then inadequate risk management. So there was not much risk management with respect to trading that was being done, but now SEBI has implemented circuit breakers, right? So if any share in the stock market suddenly increases beyond a certain limit, say 5%, 10%, then circuit breakers happens, that is the trading on that stock is stopped, right? Because it is believed that if certain share has suddenly increased by 5% or 10%, then there can be something fishy about it, or a lot of emotions are flowing into it. Then trading on that stock is stopped so that people get time to analyze what is happening, and it avoids reactions, or it avoids knee-jerk reactions by the parties. Then direct market access to FIs have been given. So when we give direct market access to FIs, basically FIs can invest directly in the market without the need of brokers. Because if FIs push their orders to brokers, then brokers get to know that some foreign company is buying shares worth rupees 20 crore in Indian company, which means the share price will increase because such large buying is happening. So what they do is that before they execute the order of FI, they themselves start buying those shares, which is called front running. Right, that you are front running, that is you have to execute a order of your client, but since you know that that order is of large value, when that order is executed, it will increase the share price, because it will due to increased demand, the share price will increase. So you will do front running, that because before executing the order of your client, you will yourself buy some shares so that you will get benefited. But if direct market access is given to FIs, then they can directly buy or sell in the market without the need of brokers, which will stop front running also. Then setting up of clearing corporations. There is a concept of novation in which basically entities are given responsibility of clearing the trade, that is to make sure that the buyer gets the shares, and the seller gets the money. So that happens through setting up of specific entities by the name clearing corporations, who make sure that the trade is completed on both sides and there is no default by anybody. Right. Then hostile takeovers. So SEBI framed regulations related to substantial acquisition of shares and takeovers code, right, which prohibited hostile takeovers. So now if you want to buy beyond 25%, one needs to go through open market. So if you already have a stake of 24%, and if you want to buy, say, 24% more, or 15% or 17% more, then you have to make an open offer in the market. So you can't do it secretly, right? You have to do through an open offer market, that okay, I want to buy this much share, this is my price, if you want to sell, you can sell it to me. So if one goes through the open market, then other person who is the owner of the company will get to know about their intentions, and then he can also make an increased bid. Right, suppose I want to buy shares of my friend's company, I want to do a hostile takeover, then I make an open offer that I will buy share at rupees 100. But when I make an open offer in the market, my friend will get to know, he can make another offer that okay, don't give it to him, that is me, rather my friend will start buying at 101, he will also make an open offer. Right. So hostile takeovers are being prevented through the substantial acquisition shares and takeovers code, which has been already implemented. Right. Right. I hope this is clear. Guys, give me thumbs up if this is clear. The point I want to make is that there is lot of data with you. If you would have read from any source, maybe from EduTap course, maybe from any book, there would be a lot of data. You can write 7 pages on capital markets, you can write 10 pages on role played by SEBI, but you have to be very succinct there, very brief there when you write. Right. So please be sure that you have to inculcate that habit of summarizing your knowledge in points and small paragraphs. So that will come with practice. Because there would be word limit, or even if there is no word limit, there would be time limit. You cannot write everything you know. So you have to combine things in a smart way. Right. So it's kind of the skills you have for writing pressy writing will help you here, right? Any questions with respect to this? Any doubts that can we write that thing? Can we avoid that thing? Anything you have in mind, you can let me know. Come on, guys. Anything you have in mind, you can let me know. Anupam Acharya Singh, can we write in paragraph? Of course, you can write in paragraph, but I think in a question like this, it becomes sense to write in points because that will clearly communicate your thought process to the examination checker. Right. The easier you make it for somebody to check your exam, I think you are bound to get more marks. I've already answered this, Anupam, right? Any other questions, guys? What should be the word limit of writing? See, in exam you will get two type of questions, 15 marks and 20 marks. I think for 15 marks questions, the word limit, even if it is not mentioned, you will not be able to write more than 150 to 200 words. Right, because ultimately you get 90 minutes, which means for 15 marks question, you will not get more than 20 minutes. Right. So I think 150 to 200 shall be kind of word limit for 15 marks question, and for 20 marks question, I think it should be around 300 to 350, you can say. That is the maximum you will be able to write in the stipulated time. I hope I have answered your query. Sneha, does it make sense to see these lectures when RBI is 10 days away? That depends upon your preparation. There are two school of thoughts. If you're not preparing for phase 2, then people say that do not watch these lectures. But I would say that at least watch these lectures so that you accumulate some knowledge. Otherwise, it suddenly becomes very difficult to grasp everything just 10 days before the exam. Right. And if you are preparing fully for phase 2 even now, then I think that makes 100% sense to watch these lectures now. Fine, guys. I think that's it. So let's meet in some another lecture where we shall discuss some more questions on descriptive writing. Thank you. Bye bye.